There's a certain level of cash that we need to have as we go into this. But, if you're talking about a post-reset strategy, I think right now the most important part to talk about is a pre-reset strategy, because we have to be as prepared as possible. And honestly, Andy, I think part of that goes into building that community around you, where you can secure that food and maybe medicinal plants or the things that you need. You need to accumulate as much gold and silver as you can. That may be challenging, but there are different ways that you can do it. The best way, the easiest and most recognizable way, really, are in coin form, but there are other ways to do it. So I would say if you focus on the mantra and you have those areas covered as best you can, and you've managed to create a community around you for what you would need around you, the food and the water, the energy, and the different skill sets to come together. That's how you're going to weather this the best. Then you have the post, which is after. And, hopefully you've been able to accumulate some growth gold so that you can convert that into income-producing assets when they are severely undervalued, like gold and silver is right now. And now you're in a much better position on the other side of this than you were going into it. But as we've all been experiencing, it's also the ability to get it. And that's the problem with medicines during that time. So hopefully, you didn't mention that was an issue. I hope it's not an issue for anybody. But these are the things that we have to think about and then accumulate so that it's just not really an issue. And dare I say it, because this was my personal experience, was that then you can help others as well. But that's part of getting into a community. Like, there's the likelihood of there being like a community garden near you is really high. I would probably get involved in that now so that you want to get everything established now. When you try and do it in the middle of a crisis, it doesn't really work. It's too late. So you really need to now. And I don't know what you mean by a small surplus of gold and silver, but yeah, it's definitely the mantra piece, and you want to get it done as quickly as you can. People try and escape the failing currency, and the stock market, as we're seeing now, goes up, up, and up. When they lop off the zeros, it goes like that overnight. Okay? And there are so many examples of those. That's probably the easiest stuff to find. But essentially, when they lop off zeros, this is what happens to the stock market. It is a straight down, because this is an overnight revaluation. And, and when you're talking about dividends, or you're talking about any fiat money at all, you've got to understand that the whole goal that they've been implementing since 1913 has been a loss of your purchasing power. And so, a trillion times zero is zero. So any kind of income, whether it's dividends, or I hate to say this, but it's just true, Social Security or universal basic income, or any of the stuff that they give you in terms of fiat, it has no value because you can't buy anything with it. Zimbabwe, who has been in hyperinflation since 2006 and has had multiple currency resets. Sometimes they were 49,000 to 1. Sometimes they were 1,000 to 1. Sometimes they were actually 1 trillion to 1. So this does not mean that you get to maintain the same level of purchasing power, which is virtually zero when you're going into that anyway. It's even worse. You end up with a whole lot less. And no, you cannot buy the same amount of stuff for the new reset currency. And they can hide things, like in Europe when they transitioned from the individual currencies to the euro. Well, what they did was, first they said, well, we've got to inflate the currency. It varied from country to country, but roughly 17% to get ready for this transition. And then if it took 2 lira to buy a loaf of bread, After it took €2 to buy a loaf of bread. So people are thinking, well, the price didn't really change, except that it took 4 liras to buy €1. So in reality, no, that's the whole point of a currency reset is, number one, to get you to continue to use the currency. So to get people to think, oh, okay, now they've fixed everything.
Now it'll stabilize.
It fixes nothing.
Yeah.
It fixes nothing. Is Zimbabwe out of it as since 2006? No, not at all. They're not even close to being out of it yet. So no, they change the rules, but they don't change the behavior. This is the time to make sure you have a plan. I mean, it absolutely is, because they certainly have plans against you, and I think, you can make that choice, but I want to have a little bit more control than somebody else that really doesn't care about me. I think it'll depend on how popular it is to buy it. If you have a lot of people that are buying it,
gold and silver,
okay. Right? Then I can see that they could prevent the purchase of gold and silver with the universal basic income CBDCs. I could definitely see that. So yeah, I mean, desperate governments do desperate things, and desperate central banks do desperate things. So do I think that they could outlaw it again? Well, considering the fact that I do think that it is highly likely that they will do some level of confiscation more than what they've already been doing, of course. Well, just suppressing the price is a form of confiscation. It may not look like outright confiscation, but that is all about perspective management. And so what they don't want you to do is perceive gold and silver that has any value. And so, yeah, to me, that is a confiscation, absolutely. If they're successful in their getting us all to believe that gold and silver has no value, well, then they don't really need to do anything, because what do you think the percentages of people that even own? They don't want you to be able to protect your purchasing power and your wealth. And they definitely, they don't want you to work in the same arena that they do, where central bankers just, not everyone that we know of, but central bankers accumulating gold because they know that they're destroying what little remnants are left of the value in their currencies. So, yeah, I definitely do think that is a probability. Well, as you guys absolutely know, without any doubt at all, it is time to cover your assets. So I commend all of you to make sure that you have the right strategy to get through this reset. Things would look a whole lot different, so please get your strategy together. This is not the time to wait. If you're looking at what's going on, things are happening fast and furious, and it's all insanity. And even though insanity can last longer than you can imagine, it does not last forever. It cannot last forever.